1949. That's the year George Orwell published his masterpiece, 1984. Now, in this explainer, we're going to look back because we usually think of his work as this, dark prophecy about modern tech. But honestly, Orwell wasn't predicting gadgets. He wasn't talking about smartphones, AI, social media, or mass data harvesting. He was actually asking a much deeper, really profound question. What happens when the systems that shape what we know become vastly more powerful than the people trying to understand them?
So yeah, 1984 wasn't about predicting the future of gadgets. It was about who controls reality. Because when you really get down to it, controlling information has always been about way more than just facts. It's about controlling memory. It's controlling language. It is literally controlling what questions people are even capable of asking. And ultimately, it's about shaping how we as human beings perceive and understand the entire world around us.
Part 1. The Ministry of Truth, Controlling the Information Environment.
In Orwell's novel, the Ministry of Truth doesn't just, hand out everyday propaganda. Its real terrifying power is its absolute control over the information environment itself. It decides what records exist, and it literally dictates what reality looks like from this massive concrete tower. But our world operates a bit differently, doesn't it? We don't have a single centralized Ministry of Truth. Instead, we've shifted from centralized control to algorithmic mediation. We now have these incredibly complex systems that sit right between us and the information we're looking for. Just think about it for a second. Search engines, recommendation algorithms, social feeds, AI assistants.
And here is the absolutely crucial point. These modern systems don't just passively hand us information. They actively decide what information we encounter first. And what we see first matters deeply. Why? Well, because the first explanation we receive almost always becomes the framework we use to interpret everything that follows. It sets the baseline for our entire understanding of a topic.
Part 2. Authority and Truth, Distinguishing Sources from Evidence.
So this brings us to what is arguably the hardest problem of the modern information age. The fundamental question we constantly need to ask ourselves is, how do we actually distinguish authority from truth? Now, let's be clear here. Official sources are super valuable. Governments, organizations, experts, they publish critical data every single day. But authority does not automatically equal accuracy. A powerful institution can still be wrong. A popular source can be wrong. And even the most confidently delivered answer, it can absolutely still be wrong.
Just look at the stark difference here. On one side, we have authority indicators, things like government backing, large organizations, or just a really confident delivery. But on the other side, we have truth indicators, verifiable evidence, context, and a clear mapping of uncertainty. The real challenge for our modern information systems isn't just pointing us to a source with a lot of authority. It's about accurately understanding the underlying evidence, providing that necessary context, and honestly showing us what is still uncertain.
Because here is the danger we're facing today. A system that only asks who said this might completely fail to ask, wait, is this actually supported by reality? If we're relying solely on the prestige or the rank of a source, without verifying if it aligns with actual evidence, we're risking building our entire reality on some very shaky ground.
Part 3. Newspeak and the Limits of Thought, Shaping How We Reason.
Now, Orwell's concept of newspeak wasn't just about censorship or, banning a few bad words. It was the deliberate restriction of language to shape what could even be discussed. It was a literal limitation on our ability to think certain thoughts. Because language fundamentally shapes what we can talk about. If a society loses the vocabulary to describe a complex problem, well, that problem effectively vanishes from collective recognition. I mean, you can't fix a problem you can't even name, right? Today, our issue isn't some dictator banning words. It's more about how information systems frame our reality. Notice this progression. Step 1, a really complex issue gets reduced to a simple, easily digestible summary. Step 2, nuance and uncertainty, they just disappear. And step 3, genuine disagreement is stripped of all evidence and reduced to just two sides taking shots at each other.
The way information is presented fundamentally affects the way people reason. It's that simple. When algorithms strip away nuance just to give us bite-sized summaries, they aren't just saving us time. These presentation mechanics are directly altering human logic and how we actually reason through complex issues.
Part 4. The Telescreen, Tools and Channels of Influence.
In 1984, the telescreen was this stark symbol of a device acting as both a tool and a one-way channel of influence. But let's contrast that with the screens we use today. Modern tech is totally different. Our devices grant us enormous, frankly unprecedented power. We can learn more than any generation before us for sure. We can communicate globally and access the entire sum of human knowledge instantly, right from the palms of our hands.
But having all that incredible power forces us to ask kind of a tough question. As our tools become better at answering questions, do we become worse at asking them? This is something I really want you to think about for your own life. Are we acting as rigorous investigators, carefully comparing sources and demanding evidence? Or are we just becoming passive consumers, eagerly accepting whatever the very first algorithmic answer happens to be?
Part 5. The Invisible Architecture. Decisions behind the screen. The reality is, the most important systems shaping our lives today are completely invisible to us. We just see the final product, right? A clean search result, a really helpful AI response, a trending topic. But think about the hidden algorithmic decisions baked into every single response. What was prioritized? What was excluded? What was considered authoritative or even relevant? This whole labyrinth of code and algorithmic weights behind the screen is constantly making these massive choices for us.
And unseen power requires ultimate accountability. Look, those hidden algorithmic decisions might be made for perfectly good technical reasons. They might be genuine attempts to improve search quality. But any system that is powerful enough to influence how millions of people understand the world, that requires intense scrutiny. Not because technology is inherently evil, no, but because unaccountable power over information is just plain dangerous.
Closing. The foundation of knowledge. So, the greatest warning of 1984 wasn't actually about the machines themselves. It was a warning about humanity losing the vital ability to question them. You see, a free society doesn't require universal agreement on everything. What it does require, though, is the collective capacity to examine evidence and to confidently challenge assumptions.
Throughout this explainer, we've been exploring the hidden architectures of information, but the single most important tool we have is a minimalist question. It's the absolute bedrock of science, of democracy, of everything. We must never, ever lose the ability to ask, how do we know?